The Cartoonerific podcast is sponsored by the wonderful World of Animation Gallery, home of rare and wonderful fine animation art. Visit their website at wwagallery.com. And for our Cartoonerific listeners, you will receive a special 10% discount off any purchase if you purchase by March 25th, 2024. Just go to wwagallery.com and enter code CARTOON10 for your 10% discount. Once again, this discount is only valid until midnight, March 25th, 2024. Once again, visit wwagallery.com.
The following is a Cartoonerific Studios presentation.
Welcome to Cartoon Fun, it's Cartoonerific. Yeah! It's Cartoonerific. Cartoonerific. It's Cartoonerific. With your host, Brian Mitchell.
Yes, welcome to the Cartoonerific Classic Animated Cartoon Podcast. I am Brian Mitchell, and thanks for tuning in. On today's Cartoonerific podcast, our special guest is Mr. Sam Levine. And Sam Levine is a story guy, he's a showrunner. He recently co-directed a movie for Warner Brothers Animation. It's DC League of Super Pets. He co-directed that movie. But he's worked on so many other things for Disney features and Disney TV. So he'll be on in a few minutes. You know, I get a lot of letters from people, actually emails, regarding their schooling and their training, trying to learn how to draw or trying to learn to draw better and become more professional. And people are trying hard, but it's inevitable. You're going to get discouraged at some point. You're going to have doubts. You're going to have a lack of confidence. I mean, I went through all that trying to get into the animation business. And this general feeling of uncertainty. Am I good enough? And not everybody comes through and tells you, oh, yeah, you're doing great work. I mean, if your mother does that, that's fantastic. But unfortunately, unless your mother is a fine artist, that may not go so far. And sometimes you'll get it out of teachers. I had that occasionally. I had, at one point, I was not feeling too good about things. And I had this teacher come up to me, and it was the first day of a class that I did at Art Students League. And he was looking at my drawing, and he said, "Oh, a professional," which shocked me. And I turned to him and I said, "I wish." But it was a shot in the arm. And, sometimes those things happen. Somebody will say to you, "Oh, wow, that's really a good drawing." And you have to kind of cling on to those things because a lot of people will not tell you that. Those things are rare, but when they happen, it should give you a big shot in the arm to move ahead. So one particular day when I was at Art Students League, and you may believe this or you may not believe it, but that's okay. I'm going to tell the story anyway. I just finished a drawing class, and I had some lunch, and I was sitting on a bench in the hallway waiting for the next class. And this elderly lady, she sat down next to me, and we're just talking. It was just small talk. And she said to me, I don't know if you believe this or not, but I can read people. And I was like, oh, and I kind of knew what she meant. But she said, I just need to touch like an article of clothing. And she didn't want to be too intrusive. And so I was a little bit leery, like what she was trying to say here. But she said, well, let me, I could touch your sneaker. And that will kind of give me some information. So she proceeded to touch my sneaker. It was the tip of the toe of the sneaker, and she proceeded to tell me this. She told me the house that I lived in on Long Island. She knew I lived on Long Island. She knew the color house I lived in. She knew the type of house it was. She proceeded to tell me about all that, where I came from before that, and then where I moved to. Not the particular town, but she gave me enough information that I was like, okay, this is pretty interesting. And then she went on, she said, no, I see you not as like a fine artist, just doing paintings. I see you working in commercial art. And one of the things she said was, I see you moving to the West Coast and having an office with a window where you could see the whole countryside. And she said, you're going to do very well. You're going to be tops at where you're working, and you're going to make a decent amount of money. And then that was kind of it. She didn't say a whole lot after that, but it came at a time when I really needed some encouragement. And, and I was wondering about my future, if I was going to succeed, but it gave me enough there to kind of give me a shot in the arm to kind of move ahead. And I believed her. And sure enough, I did move out to Los Angeles, and I did work in a studio, and I did have a window to the left of me where I could view the whole valley. And yes, I was doing pretty well over there. So that was an interesting thing. So anyway, let's move on. Next is our interview with Mr. Sam Levine. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Cartoonerific Podcast, classic animated cartoons, with your host animator, Brian Mitchell. And now it's time for our special Cartoonerific guest.
What can I say? We have this wonderful gentleman on next. He is Mr. Sam Levine. He's a very talented fellow. He's very funny. He does some voices. So here is Sam. Here's part 2 of our interview. You leave Disney. You say, hasta la vista.
Hasta baby.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I sort of I spent some time developing.
We got to stop for a second, because Home on the Range you worked on.
I did, yeah. Did I skip that?
Okay.
Yeah, I did work on that. No, that was an interesting project. Yes.
We don't have to talk, but you're the voice of the Willies.
Yeah.
How'd that come about?
Yeah. So
can you talk about that?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I never told you about it.
No, you never. No, I think the audience would like to know, because I saw that and I was like, and I saw you did the voice.
Yeah.
Of
Willie
all
Brothers.
3 of those knuckleheads, and then and it was fun.
Yeah, I think it was like this was a case of how storyboards are done, and that crew. We were kind of, at the time, we were reworking the story. It was a new version of the story, and we had the idea that the villain Slim would have these 3 nephews. And yeah, I think I had the first scene. It was my job to board the first scene where we meet them, and I think they were just kind of in the dark, and they were counting the cows,
Mm-hmm.
and they were literally counting them. And so I'm not sure if there's a lot of writing being done. A lot of the writing was done by the board artists at that point.
Right.
I think we even got a group story credit on that movie because everyone was writing on the boards.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I was doing this thing where I just thought it was funny if we just go with the monotonous, and they're just literally just counting, and then they tell the other one what it is. So it was like, one of them was like 5,241. 5,242. What did you say? I said 5,432. Like, and just kind of like, it just was funny to me. And
Mm-hmm.
I was just figuring out, what do they talk like? And I think we had some designs, and what if they just sort of, you can't see their eyes, and they're just kind of these fun guys, not super bright.
Yeah.
But I just, when you pitch, you do voices. And so Slim was like, well, hello, boys. What do you do? He'd talk like that, and then they would say, "Hey, Uncle Slam," and we would just do what pitched good, what felt good. And
Sure.
so I did the voice, and I was kind of doing kind of a monotonous guy. And I think in my head, so I want to be careful. I think in my head I had someone in mind, but it wasn't literal. But it was someone who may have been on TV,
Sure,
an actor, and show in the '80s,
right.
and then possibly they may have possibly brought that actor in to actually do the character, and then the directors might have felt that it wasn't quite as specifically fun as what I was doing, so they just had me do the role. I think that was what happened.
I think I know what you're referring to, and was the show. It was a comedy show with an N in the title, correct?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yes. All right.
Yeah.
I didn't. Okay, so I'm just guessing, but know what you're talking about.
I don't know why I feel bad about it, because I think actually they did bring the person in. So
right.
And I think it wasn't the case that he wasn't great at being himself. I think it was a case of he couldn't possibly know what they had in their mind, which is the specific stuff that we were doing.
Right.
And honestly, at this point, I can't even say what the right choice would have been.
I think you had the right take on it, though, because I thought the voices were hilarious, and it never made me think of that other show.
Well, I'm doing more of a bit of a pushed voice, and that character's a little more, pure and kind of grounded. That might be the difference.
Right.
I think they were looking for something a bit more pushed.
Right.
And I was acting with Randy Quaid. He's certainly pushed.
Oh, absolutely.
These days. But for sure. No, that was fun, and I love doing that. And I've done. I always do voices, and I definitely put a lot into my pitches.
That's great.
And then and then beyond that, I've given myself my best opportunities in voice acting. Beyond that, I always give myself great opportunities to do voices.
Well, there you go.
Because I'm my biggest supporter. No, I've done on the show I did Disney XD. I did a lot of voices, and honestly, a lot of that was just to sort of help out, because at a certain point you have a limited budget, and I think per SAG rules you can only do 3 characters per voice, but if you're running the show, you can kind of fill in the gaps and do all the incidentals. And it's also tons of fun. But
what show that was for Disney XD?
Oh yeah, that was Penn Zero, Part-Time Hero.
Right, and so you're the co-creator of that, and so showrunner.
Running that. But after, just to finish up, after Disney, I spent some time at Nickelodeon. I was developing my own show there that didn't go past pilot, and then I directed and designed this other show called Robot and Monster, or helped design for the pilot, with the great David Pressler and Sturman and Ventimiglia, Josh Sturman and Jen Ventimiglia, who are great writers. And that was a fun show. I don't know. It might be worth watching if you never heard of it. It was briefly on the air. I think, sadly, I think they even canceled it before they even aired it. They stopped the second season. I think Nickelodeon was just trying to figure out what they were doing at that point. But it was a fun show. It was a very unusual show. It's like Curtis Armstrong and Harlan Williams are doing the voices of the 2 main characters. And they're really fun.
Harlan Williams is a lot of fun,
He was great. It was a fun show because it was early CG on TV, and it had a very almost like a stop motion or like handcrafted look. And it didn't look like anything else I've seen. And Dave Pressler, who's a great sculptor and designer, he just had this visual vision. It was just this visual vision. He had this unique vision and this visual sense, and it was just fun bringing that to the air. So I did the pilot, and then when it came to series, I opted to just be one of 3 directors on it, because they were offering that to me. And at the time, I was trying to figure out TV a little bit, so that was a great experience.
Sure,
going from features to then directing 15 11-minute shorts in a year.
Wow,
that process was fun, kind of like faster, and you have to just get to. I guess you have to get to surety. Is surety a word?
Right.
You have to get there quicker. You have to just, be confident And the script is more, the script is king in TV generally.
Yes.
Which is okay because you want something, you don't want to just be open and try anything at all times.
I think
feature, sometimes things are a little bit too loosey-goosey, where it's like, oh, let's just explore forever. It's like sometimes it's good to know kind of where you're going.
Well, I think, with TV, it's just kind of like you got to make decisions quick, And I mean, I think somebody writing it has a little bit more time to kind of figure that stuff out. And then when it actually gets into production, you can trim and add stuff. But, you really have to you got to make the decisions. You got to say, this is where it's going, this is what I'm going to do, and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's it's funny, there's a freedom in restricting yourself. There's a freedom in saying, this is a great script. We worked it over.
Mm-hmm.
We tried different versions. We had really funny writers pitch on it and make the gags better. And then when you go to boards, you elevate it. And there's visual gags you never could have imagined. But it's not like you throw out, the writing. At least from a TV standpoint, that process, I found it very exciting. Right. How much content we could create, and it was good.
Yeah,
in a short amount of time. And so then after I was at Nickelodeon, I went to develop a few shows, but one of them was Penn Zero with Jared Bush, and it was fun. It was a very fun show where we got to go to all the different worlds, and it was largely a comedy show, but it had a lot of action in it, and it was just super fun. It was an early sort of harmony based show, so it was 2D, but it was asset based, so it had I guess kind of these complex puppets that approximate some real 2D aesthetic. It's funny, at the time, I think I thought it was a lot more convincing in the 2D sense. And looking back, you really can see all the tricks.
Right.
But you know what? It worked, and I was very, very proud of it. And we definitely were ambitious in a lot of the episodes. We got to go to different dimensions. So we did one episode where they go to a sitcom universe where the rules, there's an unseen studio audience that when they hear the laughs, like, where's that coming from?
Right.
And that was a fun one. That was called My Mischievous Son. That was a season 2 episode. That was so fun. But we did, all different genres, all different worlds, and it was really fun. It was like a part-time hero. So he had part-time villains, and the characters kind of zapped into different worlds and became the different, heroes and the different villains of that universe, and have to save the day.
When you were show running that, were you also like, were you coming up with some ideas for episodes, or were you just handing it up?
Yeah, no, I wrote quite a few episodes, and I was definitely there for all the breaking of stories. And so we would have a board of different potential ideas, and okay, I want to go to this clown universe where everybody is literally clowns. So let's go to a world where everybody's clowns. It was called Chuckle City. It was
right.
We actually had like a really fun Chinatown joke.
It
was like 2 cops. It was like clown cops. It was a good one. You should see the first one, Chuckle City.
Right. So there's no guns. What are they doing? Are they hitting each other over the head?
Oh, it's like
squirt pistols,
whoopee cushions, and squirt pistols.
Yeah,
like giant whoopee. There was the villain had a giant whoopee cushion that he was going to detonate and destroy the city. So just so you know what the stakes of the world. Yeah, it was good. That was fun. No, we had Alfred Molina,
right,
who was so fun to work with. Such a funny guy, such a warm guy, and Larry Wilmore. From the Daily Show and his own show, like he was really funny, and we had Thomas Middleditch, who's hilarious,
right,
and Adam Devine, great cast, and we just we had a lot of fun guest stars. Had like Sigourney Weaver and Gary Marshall.
Wow, were you in on those recording sessions, or?
Yeah, every one of them.
Wow, pretty neat.
We had Kenny Loggins sang 5 songs for one of our episodes. We had a Top Gun. But what if it was like Top Gun, but with dragons? It was like 80s dragons. We had a lot of weird shows, weird universes, but no, that was fun.
That's neat.
I love the recording sessions. It's sort of super fun.
Yeah. TV can be fun. TV, you got to get it done. You got to get it done, but it was super fun. There's so much creativity. Nobody's telling you no, especially if you're the showrunner. as long as you keep.
I think for me, where it was always fun, but where it became kind of maybe a bit too much for me was when we overlapped our post-production of season 1 with our pre-production and production of season 2. Like, there wasn't enough of me to go around. And if I did a third season, I definitely would have, I would had to have, and it would have been smart for me to delegate, because I definitely hurt my lower back on that.
Oh, yikes.
There's only so many hours you're meant to spend on a leather couch with a laptop in the wee hours of the night. You know, it's not what we were evolved to.
No. You got to give yourself a break, you know?
Yeah. But I learned, I mean, that was a lesson too. It's like, not just to delegate, but to, you know, make sure you have the people around you that, well, I think always what you're doing, you have to trust the people around you. And I did, but I think when you're running a show, there's a sense of wanting to do everything or have your hand in everything. Yeah. And actually by the end of it, I was delegating a lot. Like, I was letting go of a lot of things because I had to, but also, like, it was a great lesson that you don't have to. Well, the thing that I learned was you don't have to when it comes to shows, you don't have to be with every episode at every step. You can be there for the launch, and you can kind of come in a little later, right? You know, and weigh in. It actually is better that way, because then you can actually have more of a objective point of view. You know, when you're invested in every step of the way, you just
too close.
No objectivity. Yeah. So, you know, no, it's a fun, collaborating is so fun, and definitely TV is it's a different level of ferocity, the pace, but, you know, I think there's a lot of similarities in features and TV as well.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, you know, it's the same processes, but you just got to do it faster. And so,
faster, cheaper. Cheaper's the big one.
Yeah, we had a producer over at Warner Brothers that used to come in all the time, and it'd say, "Oh, you're doing great, but do it faster and cheaper." You know, I was like,
Floyd Norman.
Who? Floyd Norman?
Floyd Norman?
Yes, I do. Floyd
Norman, he put out these little books, and one of them was called Faster, Cheaper. That was the book, and it was just his drawings of everybody being terrible, all the executives being too demanding, and he's great. His wit is always welcome.
He's wonderful. So what happened after this
Penn
show?
Zero.
Yeah.
So that was about Disney TV was about 5 years of my life. I think I worked at Disney a collective 17 years.
Right.
17 and a half, maybe.
Right.
I got 2 statues. Let's just say that.
Oh, there you go. Well, that's
a 10-year plaque and a 15-year statue.
What is the statue of?
What?
Who is the statue of?
It's the Sorcerer's Apprentice. It's the Mickey.
Oh, okay.
The Preston Blair animated.
Yeah, I didn't think it was going to be Michael Eisner or Bob Iger.
That'd be great. I wish I had a Michael Eisner statue.
Yeah. So you
I had a few. Yeah, go on.
No. So you left Disney. Where'd you go to next?
So after the 2 seasons were done, I was going to maybe stay at Disney to develop more, but I kind of knew that, to be honest, I knew that Super Pets might happen. And I've been talking to I've worked with my good friend, Jared Stern, on a project in development at Disney Feature. And so we knew each other well. Mm-hmm. We wrote together, worked together, and he was working at WAG on a lot of projects. And he had this one that he was working on, and it was about to go. It wasn't quite ready to be greenlit.
Right.
And so at the time, I thought it might be good if I was not at Disney, locked into some contract.
Right.
So
did you develop Super Pets, or was that
the development started before me? Actually, it was in development for about 6-7 years before I came on. But it was sort of like an idea that was pitched, and it was kind of like other projects were going ahead of it. And to be honest, it started out without a DC element.
Mm-hmm.
It was more of like an animal superhero type story that, the DC Warner Brothers connection came in a little later. Actually, the draft that I read and when it got greenlit was the version, with Crypto and Justice League and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But at the time, I was like, I thought it'd be good to not be locked in at Disney, and so actually, I went to develop some TV stuff at Warner Brothers. I sort of was, I guess, kind of an overall development thing where I was just I went to develop one thing, and then the minute I got there, that went away because of some contractual things. And then I was developing another project, which I can't really talk about, but it was fun. It was an existing heritage thing for Warner Brothers.
Right.
And that was fun. But it was a nice little break. I don't know if you've ever been to the Warner's Ranch.
I lived right across the street from it.
Oh, yeah?
I did.
Yeah. Kind of an interesting, on Pass.
No, I lived on North Maple, which was, you had the Bewitched house on the other side of the fence there.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
So I'd drive up there and see the Bewitched house from behind, which is just a facade.
Yeah, I would go to the Friends Fountain and just sit out there and sing the song once in a while. That's what the Friends Fountain is on the ranch there. I spent about 9 months there just kind of developing something, and it was fun. It was a little bit of a rest.
Right.
But I knew that DC Super Pets was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And the minute it was real, I went over to Warner Animation Group, and that was about four years working on that.
Wow.
And it was super, I couldn't think of a more exciting movie to make. I had so much fun on that movie, and it was a lot of hard work, but it was very, very involving. All of my creativity, it challenged me. It pulled a lot of, it just had a lot of fun opportunities. I mean, to make a movie with Superman, Batman, Lex Luthor, Superman's dog, Crypto. I don't know. It's pretty great. It was pretty fun. So, I mean, I'm very proud of it. And people, who've seen it seem to enjoy it a lot.
Sure. And were you able to bring over some talent that you worked with over at Disney or Warner Brothers?
I definitely hired a lot of, when we're doing, designing, doing the visual development of it. Definitely, I tried to find some designers I've worked with in the past and character designers, and then a few that I wanted to. Yeah, I brought. I don't know if you know as far as animators go, but Matt Williamies is a great animator.
He's wonderful.
Yeah, so Matt's great, and he's just a great guy. And so, actually, I think that was the first official character design job that he got. So he was doing designs with another great designer named Mayumi Noze, she's like amazing, and she did basically almost most of the designs.
Wow.
Of Crypto and Superman, but Matt as well is he was the lead designer as well, and he's such a great animator, but his sense of design and kind of character comes across so strongly.
Right.
But there was that, and then as far as there were a lot of to be honest, and I think it's true of every project. There are people you want to work with again, and they're also maybe not available.
Right.
There's a fun in discovering new people. One amazing artist who I was so happy to work with on that, Ryan Carlson, who's one of our art directors. But I would say he really defined a lot of the look. It was fun. We were really trying to do something. I was trying to do something classic in a sense that, it's Superman and it's Crypto. So I felt like we didn't want to do something that was so cartoony and wild that it didn't. I felt there was some kind of, Superman's a monumental thing, Metropolis.
Right.
Crypto, he's from the 50s. He's from comics from the 50s and Silver Age of DC. I felt like there should be something, classic about it. So we didn't look at the golden age of comics. We looked at classic illustration like J.C. Leyendecker, and looked at Maxfield Parrish, the palette.
Right.
Looked at DC artist Alex Ross, just to get that monumental, heroic feel. And then we kind of brought brushstrokes into the characters and into the environment. So it felt kind of like a moving illustration. I think some shots and sequences were stronger in that direction. But it was fun. It was just a fun challenge, like to be able to create our own Metropolis, kind of push kind of an Art Deco feel. Have fun with it.
Very neat. What are you doing now? Because that was a lot. Did you work on any projects between now and the Super Pet?
I am developing some projects now. It's too early to talk about them. But I definitely, I think it's important for people to do. That was like 4 solid years, a lot of work.
Sure.
Didn't take much time off before that, so I definitely have been taking some time off and really just working on some life stuff and just taking a break. And I think for health and for just mental health and stuff. So I settled. I was in Vancouver for 1.5 years making that movie, so settling back here.
Wow.
And back in LA. Vancouver's great, by the way. Great studio there, Animalogic.
Right.
Great studio, great city.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I'm developing some stuff. I'm not sure if if I'll be spending most of my time in a TV realm or in a feature realm, but I'm up for both, and I have projects in both arenas that I'm developing. But
it's very cool. And I worked with Don Bluth, and he would start off on a project, and he would look great. And at the end of the project, at the end of the film, he would absolutely look like a truck hit him. And it almost looked like he aged, like 10, 20 years.
Right. Yeah.
And then he would refresh, and then he would come back and he would look wonderful again. So, these movies do take a lot out of you, And I don't know I don't know if you feel that way, but 4 years of your time on one project like that, and just, I'm sure you're sweating it out too. You're trying to figure out if, am I making the right decision on this stuff? Or I'm sure that goes through your head, right?
I mean, there's there's all kinds of challenges, especially when you're collaborating and you're working with a studio. And, I had the unique thing of working, like I was on the ground with the team in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. And then there was the team in, Warner Brothers in Los Angeles. And I was kind of in both worlds with Zoom and the pandemic and everything. So
sure,
it was so funny. Like in the mornings, we would be doing editorial and writing and, looking at the movie and editorial and just making the changes in storyboards. And then in the afternoon, I'd be making the movie with the team, as far as the animation and the lighting and the effects and everything.
Right.
Sometimes in one meeting, you'd be like, what was decided in editorial? And I was like, I think it was something else. Here, send these notes to editorial so they can talk about it in the morning. Then I'd be in the morning and someone would read the notes that I gave to myself. So I would be like sending like a message in a bottle back and forth. And I was the only one in both worlds. I was sort of like this weird. So it was like a fun thing. And the pandemic was actually unique because it made it so I was more present in both worlds. Because I think if it was no pandemic,
right,
they probably would have scheduled stuff in Vancouver around the clock for me, But because it was pandemic and everyone was still, Zoom in.
Okay, I'm going to ask you this: Are there any moments that you remember working on this movie where you were just like extremely pleased, like whether it was a story element or if it was something that just came together in animation that you were just like, wow, this works? You have any of those aha moments like, wow?
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely quite a few from a voice acting standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Our cast is so good. Whenever we had Kate McKinnon in the booth on Lulu, Lex Luthor's, guinea pig, like she was so funny. She would improvisation and she would just, it was so fun to have her in there. And it was a question is how are we going to use even 5% of what she's doing? So that was great. And we had also, so many great voice actors. So the question was, you could probably edit that part. I didn't answer that very well.
No, it's fine.
What the greatest moment of joy or kind of like, oh, wow. Trying to figure out. Well, one thing was really fun when we have there's a moment where Ace the dog becomes the Bat Hound and he teams up with Batman at the end. Mm-hmm. It's the Kevin Hart character and the Keanu Reeves Batman when they kind of come together in their kind of Dark Knight sullen attitude, and we came up with a visual style. Suddenly pull him into this sort of comic book universe, almost like a Frank Miller, Dark Knight Returns look. And when we kind of figured that out from like a digital, because we had our we took the 3D process into kind of a 2D, posterized kind of look, and that really came together. And I was amazed by digital grading, what we could do with our style. When you're done in lighting and you do that final, it's like a Pandora's box where you can do almost anything.
Right.
You can change focal lengths. You can add camera shakes. You can actually change the colors of literally every pixel. And for our style specifically, like it really helped us to capture that illustrative look. Sorry, these aren't good sound bites. I think it's late in the interview. Trying to figure out what the most fun thing. I mean, it's hard to pick one moment. It was such a process.
Right.
The one thing that was interesting was we were really trying to find a style. And that was an interesting thing, because it's a good kind of lesson. Like if you're trying to find your visual style, you do a lot of artwork, visual development art, and then you're dealing with all the assets, and then you're doing tests. But like you're sort of waiting for like the moment when you get the style right, the style that you came up with in the artwork. And the truth is, that's not the case. That's never the case. The style that you end up with is where you get to. It's not what you planned on. It's where the creative push and pull and the meandering and the trying stuff. And there was a moment when it clicked and I was like, oh, I guess we don't have to look for the style anymore. We kind of have it.
Right.
And it was like, and you realized all the time of trying to, get it better, push it. And it's good work to push, but sometimes you're so obsessed with the things that you had in your head coming into it from a development standpoint that you're not necessarily open to what it may become. And I think the truth is, it's true of life, it's the journey is where you find, where you're headed. It's not, you may have all these ideas in your head and you have to be open to let those go and to kind of embrace what you find on the way.
Right.
Because I found myself being, I have to tell myself like, it's here, you got it. You don't have to keep pushing towards the thing that you thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain exactly what I'm talking about without the visuals, but
no, I think
just a good, yeah.
No, I think you're explaining it pretty well. I think a project kind of finds itself, at the beginning you're searching and then it kind of solidifies at some point. And it's all that work, but then finally it locks in somehow. And it's almost like this is what it was meant to be. And it's kind of a weird thing. It might be a little metaphysical kind of thinking. I mean, I can tell you actually one scene that it's a shot that you almost won't even notice. There's a scene in Super Pets where Crypto and Clark Kent are, it's going to be movie night. They're going to watch the Great British Bake Off, and Crypto's making popcorn. He's excited to spend his time with his best friend. Right.
And then there's a knock on the door, or there's a buzzer, and he sees with the camera Lois Lane is out there, and there's a girl coming to ruin their boys' night, and there's a conflict between him and his owner.
Right.
But there's a shot that you come outside his building. And it's a wide shot at night, and there's Lois Lane at the door. So it's a wide establishing shot. And what happens is Crypto answers the door, and she says, "Oh, hello, little guy." And then he grabs her boot and he throws her into the sky, and she ends up flying like 10 miles into the ocean. That's what happens. And of course, you realize it was just his imagination.
Right.
He was imagining he was killing her. He's like, "Nah, I won't do that."
Right.
But that one shot, when I saw that go through lighting, and we had this process which we called painterly pass, where we took all the the textured models that were lit, and then we pushed it through these geniuses figured out a way to basically make it painterly, like a Monet painting, let's say, the extreme version,
right?
But not in a way that makes you feel like everything is just swimming with color. Because at a certain point, that kind of look, you won't really believe it. In my mind, you'll feel like, oh, it's like some expressive short film, and how am I going to like invest in this movie?
Mm-hmm.
But there was that one shot was so good. And if you look at that, if you have a good size TV, or even if you get close, like I'm so proud of the way that looked. And every time it came up in our dailies or our lighting sessions, I would just kind of like be like in awe. I was like, this is beautiful. Like that looks like a painting, but that is all 3D assets.
Right.
And I was like, I would always heap praise on the team, but to myself, I'd be like high-fiving myself, like, we did it. And it was like, it was a long road to get to that, because it was like you can go too far and you can go too soft, and you're not actually doing it.
Right.
If you're afraid to make it look different, it's never going to look interesting. Wow. But anyway, that was one moment that I was like amazed with. So it's worth looking at.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to thank you for doing this. A lot of people don't want to talk about their careers, and it's hard to find people that actually want to sit down with me and talk. And because a lot of animators, animation artists, they like working behind the scenes, but they don't want to be in front of a microphone. And it was just really wonderful that you came on here to do this.
I'm happy to do it, and I'm really glad you asked. And I remember I was going to say it's been a long time, but I met you because you had a Center for Character Animation, a class in Long Island you were teaching, and I went and I took some of your classes, and I was always super inspired by everything you drew for me and you told me, and I was so eager for information back then.
Sure.
So it's full circle, and I'm really glad you gave me so much inspiration. So cool. I'm glad that I can somehow talk nonsense for an hour. And,
no,
it was be useful.
It was It was wonderful. One last thing I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
I was talking on a previous show. People ask me, they say, I live in Los Angeles, and my son or my daughter, they want to get into this, and I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go, and I told the person, well, first off, you're in the right place, being in Los Angeles, but do you have any advice for any young people here that are, they want to get into this wacky field of animation, whether it be hand-drawn or computer? What's the best advice you can give them?
Yeah, it's sort of like, it's interesting. It's such a different time to come up when we were talking. That was pre-internet when I was going to school, and there was an internet, but it was not. It was like Netscape.
Yeah.
Right. It was the internet was like not a thing, but there's so many resources.
Right.
It's kind of a different world now. And I would say there's just so much out there. Like there's so much art to be inspired by, but it might be overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so many artists. I mean, what I would say the most important thing is to, involve yourself in the art, like find the things that you love, when it comes to animated shows or, artists and drawings, and, collect them, have your own point of view, work on your own. It's important to draw and love drawing. If you write, it's important to write and love writing.
Mm-hmm. It's
important to try and fail. Like, keep doing it, keep drawing, keep trying. I think the most important thing is to just do it. The Nike thing, just do it, do the thing. When it comes to the resources, I mean, I can't really give a recommendation of one thing or the other. It's sort of like, I mean, the truth is, if you build it, what is that thing from Field of Dreams? If you build it, he will come. Like if you
build it, they will come.
If you put in the work and your work will show your interest. I think there is a sense of people trying to emulate or want to become something they think people want to see. I think it's important to have your own point of view and know what you love, and to really work on things that you like, because I think that will show. I think, again, it's like trying to reverse engineer your work to make someone else like it. I think that could, it's better if it comes from you, I think.
Right.
Find your point of view, let your work celebrate what you love about filmmaking, animation, drawing, life. I think it'll come through.
Yeah. And
And put in the work.
all the tools are there. All the tools are there. Cameras are there. You got tablets. Anybody can draw. There's all this stuff on the internet. There's plenty of books. There's more books now than, geez, Eric Goldberg has a book. You got the old cartoon animation book from Preston Blair. That's still out there. The Illusion of Life, all this stuff. And then there's books on computer animation on Pixar and God, I can. It seems like there's a new book coming out like every month of.
Yeah, I just got this book. There's a book on Eric Larson.
Yeah, I got it. I just got that book.
I just saw that. I was like, because he seems like he's kind of like a link between the 9 Old Men and the generation after. And I think I have some of his notes someone gave me.
Right.
I think actually Don Hahn gave some Xerox of his notes from the from the ARL. But the book is interesting. I started to read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. The stuff's all out there. There's so much out there. It can be overwhelming. I do recognize that. I think if I was starting out, I wouldn't know where to look first.
Right.
I think the thing is, be there for the muse. When creativity is calling you, write it down, draw it, put in the time. I think that's the thing. And, it never hurts to take drawing classes. It never hurts to go to the zoo and sketch animals. Those are things that are always going to help you.
Right.
But I do think that you have to kind of, it's kind of when I met you, when I was in college and John K-Maker ran a great animation department. And I learned about animation history at NYU. I learned about, the principles, but I also felt like in my mind, I wanted to go to Cal Arts, and my dad didn't want to send me to Cal Arts. And I thought they would give you all the secrets. They would tell you how to do it. They would sit behind you and show you how to draw.
Right.
But I realized you have to figure out on my own. I figured out the principles from struggling through my animated films. I had to figure out squash and stretch. I had to figure out overlapping action, trial and error.
Yeah.
You actually start to teach it to yourself and you go, oh, even just storyboarding. When do you go from a medium shot to a close-up? Why do you go to a wide shot?
Mm-hmm.
Usually there's a reason you want to establish where you are. Sometimes you want to do that later in a scene.
Right.
Sometimes you want to start with someone's face and then reveal what they're looking at.
Right.
And these are things that you only learn by looking at movies critically and find the movies you love and study them, or by just doing the storyboards and you make these little decisions. So I think the struggle is good.
Yeah.
Writing is rewriting. Doing bad drawings is great. These are all things that will get you where you're headed. Don't be afraid of the journey, I would say. And don't be afraid of messing up. Because the messing up will help you.
Well, you learn,
get there.
You learn from the mistakes, and you have to make mistakes to get. And that's storyboarding. That's animation. It's every part of that process. Color.
Yeah, mistakes are great.
Yeah,
that's a thing they don't teach much. Creativity is the freedom to fail.
Right.
I think that's something that people feel like, oh, I can't draw because I can't make it perfect. Drawing is the struggle. It's the journey towards something. I think that's something that it's worth remembering. And yeah,
it's a good point. It's a very good point. One thing I'm just going to add: if you have a camera, whether all these cameras shoot video now. And I'm not just talking a video camera. I'm talking about a still camera or. Yeah, but
I don't know. I did just buy my son. He's actually at college and he's studying film. And before that I got him a camera. I just went to Best Buy and tried to find the best, not the best, but a pretty good,
a mid-range.
I think it was a Canon. I think Canon is the good, a Canon that will do
a Rebel.
There's ones that will do the good. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
And it will do the animation. It will do the still in the video. And then it's get the right lenses, get the setup. And,
it's basically you get a couple of lenses and then you could go out and shoot your own short subject in live action And you learn about cutting, because when you start putting that stuff together on a video like a video editing program, basically you're fashioning the film, and it's no different than storyboarding, really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One thing that I did early on, around the time that I was doing that first storyboard on Treasure Planet, when I was trying to get in, and I think this is an easy thing to do. If you're interested in storyboarding or directing, I think you should find a movie you love and make, if you love a movie, it's probably pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Find a movie that is reasonably good. Find a filmmaker that's a good filmmaker, Spielberg, whoever.
Right.
Or animated movies that are, and watch a sequence in slow motion. Do little thumbnail drawings of each time the camera changes, and you will notice things in slow motion that you never noticed. And it will cement, you'll start to realize that these things, in editorial, a lot of them were choices, but you'll also find that a lot of them are just natural. Like, that's when you're supposed to cut wide. Right. And that's why we're tight. Mm-hmm. I remember I was going through, just because I was interested, I love The Lion King. When that came out, I was really impressed with it.
Sure.
And I was watching The Lion King slow-mo. There's a final battle where Simba's fighting Scar, and spoiler alert, he kills him at the end. But they have one little insert shot of Simba's face and his eyes squinting before he throws him in. And you can almost miss it. Yeah. But it gives you that sense that he is in control. And I imagine they put that in there just to make it, and it's like, anyway, I just find that really useful. And it's also fun because you find the movie you love, and the drawings don't have to look great. They're just for you to think. And I think that's a really useful exercise. And, you don't have to do it that often. Do it for, 3 or 4 scenes of movies that you love, and it will inform what you do.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, Sam.
Brian.
Thank you so much for coming on here.
Great.
Really
Thanks
appreciate
for inviting me on. I enjoyed it. Enjoyed talking.
I enjoyed it as well. Let's stay in touch.
Yeah. Talk to you soon.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hello, all you nice people in cartoon.
Do you have any questions or comments about the podcast? Please email Brian at cartoonerific.com. Your email may be featured in one of our future shows.
Well, hey, thank you, Sam Levine, for coming on the show. Sam is a multi-talented guy. He does voices, too. He's a great artist and a wonderful director. So, I hope you enjoyed the interview. And, Sam, thank you again for coming on. We have some great guests coming on in the future, next couple of weeks. So please come back for that. It'll be a lot of fun. Hey, if you haven't subscribed to the Cartoonerific podcast, if you have not subscribed to it yet, please do so. And if you haven't told a friend yet, what are you waiting for? Get them in on the fun. Tell a friend today. If you want to really help us here on the Cartoonerific podcast, buy some of our company swag. We have mugs, we got t-shirts, we got hats, got the whole shebang. So you can outfit yourself in total Cartoonerific paraphernalia. Anyway, we have some fun stuff coming up soon on the podcast, so please come back. Anyway, I want you all to have a great day. I want you to have an excellent week. And thank you all once again for tuning in. See you next time.
This has been a Cartoonerific Studios presentation.
The Cartoonerific podcast is copyright 2024 by Cartoonerific Studios Incorporated. All rights reserved.